Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back into Mining Stock Daily. We have a corporate update from Great Bear Resources this afternoon. Great Bear trades on the TSX Venture with GBR and on the OTCQX with GTBAF. And once again, happy to welcome in CEO Mr. Chris Taylor. Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm doing good, Trevor. How are things on your end?
Just peachy, cannot complain. Beautiful weather here today. Not getting hit with that cold wind chill. It sounds like is moving from Canada down to most of the states here. So at least not getting frozen out quite yet. But I hear it's kind of brutal in places up there.
Yeah, fortunately here in Vancouver, I'm actually enjoying the fact it's not raining on me, and I like seeing a bit of snow on the mountains, so I can't complain.
It's a beautiful day in Vancouver then if it's not raining and you can see across the bay there.
Yeah.
Hey, this is just a quick follow-up on a couple latest news items that has hit the tape here. And we'll start out with the latest news that came out yesterday. You were able to provide some more drill results from the LP fault once again. It's just kind of been a constant theme here. Chris, I've said it, I don't know how many times since you and I started chatting more often, and that's grade continues not to be an issue here. So what is a concern here? What is a challenge?
I guess the challenge we're having is not overwhelming the market and our investors with too many news releases. Because, as you've seen over the last number of weeks, we kind of put out a news release every week, which I actually don't know of any other companies in our kind of shoes that do that. And, it's like, I guess an example is yesterday we put out whatever it was about 13 grams over 18 meters right at surface, and another 4 grams over 57 meters. But the point of the release was less about the fact that we had really good gold results, because we always have really good gold results, but it was the fact that we're up to 230 holes drilled in this big LP fault target. And, the figures that we put out with the release were actually more important than the numbers themselves.
What do you mean the figures? Open that up for us. What do you mean by that?
Well, the cross sections that we put up, I kind of,
sure.
It's really my task is to try to explain, a gold system that's like 4 to 5 kilometers long, where you just keep hitting gold. Why is each set of drill results relevant? So, what we did this time was we took a few holes from one of the cross sections and we showed it at different scales. And the point of view being that if you've worked in an underground mine like I have, and somebody gave you a 50 meter by 50 meter panel where you were going to develop an ore body, that would be about the right size to put together a high grade ore body. Or maybe it would get to a couple hundred meters long. But what we did with this last news release is we showed on just one section out of probably 100 sections that we have to put out over the coming year along this like 4 to 5 kilometers of the LP. We put out one section on 3 different scales and showed that continuity of the gold mineralization, including that high grade core that always sits there. And that was right to surface and all the way down to several hundred meters depth. I think about 450 meters depth on this section. We showed it at 50 meter spacing, or at 50 meter scale, at 200 meter scale, and at 800 meter scale in the figures. And the continuity is just as good on every scale that you look at, which is something, frankly, I've never seen in my career before.
Well, and this is really getting proven out as well from your tighter drill spacing as well, because that's tightening up. I mean, you were going 1 to 200 meters spacing before. Now you're, 25 meter spacing?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like a year ago, we were drilling some of these holes at like 1 kilometer spacing. now we're down to 25 in places. But you see the same thing, like whether it's a kilometer or it's 200 meters or 100 meters or 50 meters or 25 meters, at each scale that we've drilled it, we see the same geology, we see the gold mineralization, and we see that predictable pattern. And that's what we're showing people, is just that it's not like, there's so many projects in the world where you can go in and there's a sweet spot and you can put a bunch of holes in that sweet spot and that's it, right? There's a lot of projects that can do that. This is not like that. It's consistently developing these big continuous panels of gold mineralization over kilometers. And, people say, or people thought, sure, they could hit it over a big area, but they'll never hit it consistently over a big area. And that's what we're showing. It's remarkably consistent. And that's really what is going to set this discovery apart.
In the depth of these drill holes are still kind of within the same range you had been drilling. I mean, nothing exceptionally deeper than than normal.
Yeah, the focus with us, at least initially, is to show the gold endowment on the project between kind of 0 meters depth, right from the surface, basically down to 400 or 500 meters depth, and we're doing that consistently along. I think it's 4.2 kilometers now. So what we want to do is show that envelope first, and as we begin to flesh that out, build up that sort of high definition view of it, we'll also be putting deeper holes in over the course of the year as well, just to show that, eventually, presumably later this year, the beginning of next year, when the company is ready to publish its maiden resource, whatever number we give you is really just the tip of the iceberg, because we'll have shown with deeper drilling at that point that the gold, in fact, goes over a much greater distance. So we've done that on a couple of the zones, taking them down to about 800 meters vertical depth already, and we've hit some exceptional results down there.
A few weeks back, you did release the geological model. I'm just kind of curious with this tighter spacing drilling. Is there anything from recent tighter drilling that would have changed that geological model, or maybe things you wish you would have known prior to that release of the model?
It's been remarkably consistent. Like if you go to our website, there's a 3D model that you can spin around right on the front page. That's the Verify model. And that's been, that was informed with roughly about just under 200 drill holes to make that model. We're now up to about 230, and the patterns have been holding. So where we expected to hit good grades, we've hit good grades. Where we've expected to hit these big bulk tonnage intervals, we've hit the bulk tonnage intervals, the kind of gram type material. And then again, these high grade channels running through where you're getting, half ounce material, third of an ounce, sometimes several ounces. Those have been within these shear zones that are quite predictable as you follow it along the spine of the system. So it's all held together. And I think, it's because we didn't issue a model until we were close to 200 drill holes in the first place. So it wasn't that speculative. It was informed based on data. So no, it hasn't changed too much. It's been remarkably consistent.
Okay, very good. Well, from the LP fault, let's go over to the Dixie Limb Zone, because you did also put out some metallurgical test results. Obviously, we know gold in the ground isn't worth much if you can't extract it and process it, unfortunately. But really nice 97% gold recoveries from the Dixie Limb Zone, which you were able to test. Just kind of glancing over this news, what's really important other than just, the high probability of good recovery?
Yeah, the Dixie Limb Zone is actually probably the most complicated metallurgically on the project, because it has a little bit of sediment in there. It's basically a different kind of host rock in places. Most of the project is hosted in various volcanic rocks, but there are some sediments there. But the bottom line was it didn't make any difference. The gold recoveries were anywhere from the kind of mid to upper 90% range. And, that means from the future perspective, and obviously we have to do more testing and it's early days, but it looks to me like all of this material can run through the same sort of processing facility. And that's what's really important. So if you have different types of ore on a mining project and they have to be treated in different ways, that's something that would ultimately add cost to a property in terms of development, processing, extraction. But what we're seeing here, it looks like it could probably all be extracted the same way, because the Dixie Limb Zone, which is probably the most complicated, came out with basically exactly the same recoveries as the Hinge Zone, which is probably the most simple. And the big LP fault is going to lie somewhere in between, and we're doing metallurgy on that now. So it bodes well. It bodes well for the future of the project if you could stick all that material through the same mill. And the recovery percentages were almost identical to everything else. In the Red Lake area, you expect 96, 97% gold recoveries, and that's exactly what we saw here. So really no surprises. Just, sometimes it's surprising and joyful not to be surprised, and that's exactly what happened here.
The surprise was not being surprised. I like
it.
Well, very good. Chris, let's just leave it at that, because you had news out this week. You said you're trying to put news out every week, so we will see what next week brings. Looking forward to that. And I'm sure you and I will be touching base once again before the end of the month.
Yeah, well, thanks, Trevor. We'll be talking again soon. Probably around to the end of the month, we'll we'll be closing the financing here in a short period of time. So I guess we'll be talking about what we're going to do with that $100 million. So, all right.
That's another problem to have, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Chris Taylor, Great Bear Resources, everybody. They trade on the TSX Venture with GBR, and also on the OTCQX with GTBAF. The information presented should not be considered investment advice. Mining Stock Daily and its affiliates are not responsible for any loss arising from any investment decision in connection with the material presented herein. Please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial representative before making any investment decision.